Hi there, I'm Mark Allen. I'm here for Tobin Brothers Funerals and I'm here for Say It Now Week. I've got a lot of people to thank along the way. I've had a ridiculous journey the last 6 months that I'm sure you're going to hear about very, very soon. I'm looking forward to looking down at the camera and thanking everybody who's been involved. I received some horrible news back in December 2018. I'd always been getting checks along the way for my health. I'd always been getting blood checks right at the end of my radio year. For the last 5 or 6 years, those checks have come up absolutely clear. But in the 6 months previous to this diagnosis, every time I went to the toilet, there'd be a little bit of red blood on the paper. So I went and saw my GP. My GP had a good look around and checked for everything, and she thought it might have been some hemorrhoids. I got some hemorrhoid cream. I put it on, I thanked her. And the bleeding stopped. 2 months later, the bleeding started again. And I thought to myself, gee, I've got nothing on next week. It's my holidays. Maybe I'll call and get my GP because I'm bleeding again. And every once in a while, I was seeing a tiny little bit of blood in the water as well. So I went there, we had a check. She said, maybe it's time for a colonoscopy. Because it was Christmas, a lot of people get these procedures done at the end of the year. And when I booked in, I had a 10-week wait. It was the 31st of January I was booked in for. All the blood tests that I'd had over the last 5 or 6 years came up clear. So there was no stress whatsoever. I was playing golf the next day. I always play golf on a Wednesday morning. And I saw a doctor I know, and he owned a horse called Snitty Kitty. And I thought, I better go find out when Snitty Kitty's running again. And I got over there and asked the Dr. Jeffrey Wells about this horse of his, and he told me. And then for some reason, it was almost like I was bragging to him. I thought, oh, by the way, I'm getting this done. I'm getting a colonoscopy. It's done on the 31st of January. He goes, what's going on? What's wrong? And I told him what was wrong. And as soon as he heard that there was blood in the water, he said, we're not waiting 10 weeks, son. I'll get this done this week. Thursday came. I was in my gown. I was in the fetal position on the gurney. I remember waking up and the doctors were there and they told me they were going to remove 20% of my lungs. Well, the way I was breathing, I felt like they'd left me 20%. I could hardly breathe. The doctor said that they got everything, so we dodged a bullet, which was great. And then Trish walked in, and it was the first time we got a bit teary together because it just didn't feel right. I was so healthy 3 or 4 weeks prior to this. I mean, I was breaking records in the gym, everything was great, and Trish walked in and I could hardly breathe. And we just had a little cry together, really. I mean, I was welling up. Tears were going down my cheek, and Tricia walked in and she didn't know what to say or what to do. We didn't know what was going to happen. About 2 weeks later, I was in surgery for the biggest of the 3 operations that I've had, and that was to cut out 80% of my rectum. And I walked out of there with a colonoscopy bag, a stoma they call it. That was tough. That was really hard. And I remember, there were some nights, particularly early, where you'd roll over at bed and because you're not used to having this on your side, you'd make a mess of the bed. And this is where Trish has been just so strong. I'd tap her on the shoulder and say, hey, we've got to get up. And she'd say, don't worry, let's just get it. And we'd both get up and change the sheets and get it done. And, a lot of the time when you're doing that sort of stuff, you don't realise it, but your dignity just goes out the window. But Trish was so good, amazing. She was so strong. We'd just go back to bed. We'd wake up, we wouldn't even speak about it. We'd just get on with our lives. And, I know that when I look back on this, when it's all done and hopefully this graph of good news keeps on going, I know when I look back, one of the big thank yous that I've got is to my wife, Tricia. She has been unbelievable. My wife has been fantastic, that's true. But I've got to say, the people at my school, where my kids go to school, St Joan of Arc, they were unbelievable. Families rallied together once they heard there was some bad news amongst the school people, and they were leaving meals on the front door, so Trish didn't have to look after 2 kids and an invalid. So that was amazing. I work now at Macquarie Media. I'm the host of the afternoon program, Macquarie Radio Drive, and I've got to say that Macquarie have just been just ridiculous. I'm only new here. And their support has been amazing. But I've got to say that the bloke I work with, David Schwartz, he was a superstar footballer back in his day, but my God, has he become a superstar friend. What he did and the care that he showed, and he kept back when he had to. And then, you know, neither of us are big huggers, but I know the first time I walked through those doors this year with, you know, enormous amount of bruising under here and hardly being able to breathe and coughing in between every time I spoke, he just didn't care. You know, he was just helping me with the cough button. He pushed through. And I remember walking through that first time after that lung operation, and to get a big hug from the big fella was unbelievable, you know. And just seeing him with his positivity and just getting me through each day. And then there were other days where he knew I was cooked on Thursday night, and he'd say, "Don't come in tomorrow, I'll fix it." And I would go home somehow and just, you know, rest up. And I knew I could count on him to fix that situation. And, you know, Matt Granlund, who's another person we have to thank for, you know, just basically dropping everything and coming in and hosting the show with Ox when I was crook. I know that I've thanked a lot of people here, and they're the people that I'm always going to see it in my life. But the people that I need to thank, and I need to say it now, are all the hospital staff. I was told to leave my dignity at home. And I didn't understand why, actually, when I turned up at the hospitals. But when you lose 80% of your rectum, you know, there are some issues that are pretty embarrassing. That hospital staff and the nurses, the things they had to do, the things they had to do when I woke up, horrifying to me. To them, it was just normal. It was another day at work. They were unbelievable. The surgeons were unbelievable. You know, to operate on me and when I wake up and the surgeons are there, unrealistic. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did. But to every nurse at Melbourne Private Hospital and Epworth in Richmond, Cabrini in Malvern, to all of those nurses who helped me through incredibly embarrassing times. My God, what a job you did. Thank you so much.